In the previous video, we learned that Zeus and Hera had 4 children. While their daughters, Hebe and Ilithyia, worked regular day jobs on Olympus, their sons Ares and Hephaestus joined the ranks of the 12 Olympian gods. Ares, the god of war, was the firstborn son of Zeus and Hera. On Earth, Ares might be a crown prince, but in the heavens he was more infamous than revered. Mortals feared him rather than respected him, for obvious reasons. While Athena, the goddess of defensive warfare, was honored, Ares represented brutal conquest and aggression, a force few wanted to invite. Ares had a notoriously short temper and a thirst for blood. The mere mention of conflict would have him wide-eyed, sword drawn, ready to throw himself into the fray. If there was so much as a skirmish anywhere, Ares would show up, reveling in the clash of blades, the screams of the wounded, and the chaos of combat. He thrived in the battlefield's symphony of pain. To him, a kind of Vinahouse blasting in his ears. Zeus's disdain for Ares was no secret. If Ares hadn't been his son, Zeus would likely have thrown him into Tartarus long ago. But Ares didn't seem to mind his unpopularity. He was too busy enjoying the carnage, charging into battle with helmet, armor, sword, and shield, eyes wide with violent glee. With a triumphant yell, he would dive headlong into the chaos, indiscriminately slashing at anyone in his path, friend or foe alike, driven by a singular desire to stain the battlefield crimson. Ares was indeed a god of war through and through, thriving not for victory but for the sheer bloody thrill of battle itself. Despite being the god of war and exuding sheer brute aggression, Ares wasn't exactly known for his combat skills or tactical genius. In other words, he was both hot-headed and, well, a bit of a brawler rather than a true warrior. This left Ares tasting defeat on more than one occasion, with one of his most notable embarrassments happening at the Battle of Troy. During the Trojan War, Ares sided with Troy against the Greeks, but the Greek forces, far from intimidated, pressed on. The hero Diomedes stepped up to face Ares himself. With his usual battle cry, Ares hurled his bronze spear, but it missed its mark as Athena stealthily guided it off course. Diomedes, unharmed, retaliated by launching his own spear, and with Athena's assistance, it struck Ares right below the belt. Ares let out a scream so loud it eclipsed the combined shouts of thousands of soldiers, a sound that could only be described as otherworldly agony. Wounded and humiliated, Ares had no choice but to limp back to Olympus, grumbling curses with every step. Upon reaching Olympus, Ares stormed in to complain to his father, Zeus, accusing Athena of conspiring with mortals and disrespecting him. But Zeus, who had little patience for his eldest son's antics, brushed him off, effectively saying, "Not my problem," before delivering a scolding that left Ares even more battered than before. Now let's turn to Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths and craftsmanship, whose life was anything but glamorous. Unlike his brother Ares, Hephaestus wasn't blessed with a warrior's physique or striking face. Instead, he was born with a limp and a rather unfortunate appearance. One tale tells of how Hera, disappointed by her son's looks and physical condition, tossed him off Olympus in a fit of disgust. Hephaestus plummeted from the peak of the heavens into the sea, where he was fortunately rescued by the Oceanid nymphs and Thetis. They brought him to the palace of the old sea god Oceanus, where he was raised with care and taught the ways of the world, or at least the world under the sea. Though born with a limp and lacking in charm, Hephaestus had a sharp mind and remarkable skill with his hands. His natural strength and talent in metalwork made him an exceptional blacksmith. He began crafting beautiful jewelry and priceless treasures for the goddesses who had raised him, earning him a revered place in the oceanic realm, where he was highly respected for his artistry and skill. Yet, despite the respect he earned under the sea, Hephaestus harbored a simmering grudge against his mother, Hera, for casting him away. So he devised a plan to exact his revenge. He crafted a stunning golden throne, intricately designed and breathtakingly beautiful, and sent it to Hera as a gift. Thrilled to receive such an extraordinary piece of craftsmanship, Hera felt it was a throne truly worthy of a queen, something even Zeus would envy. In her mind, sitting on that throne would elevate her status before everyone. But there was a catch. The throne wasn't made for sitting. The moment Hera lowered herself onto it, golden chains sprang from the arms, legs, and back, binding her tightly. Hera struggled and screamed, but the chains held fast. The goddesses rushed to help, but the chains were unbreakable. The gods tried their strength, but no one could release Hera from Hephaestus' trap. The only way was to summon the craftsman himself. Hermes was dispatched to the depths of the ocean, where Hephaestus was tirelessly forging away, isolated from the rest of the world. Hermes extended the invitation to return to Olympus and release Hera, but Hephaestus refused. Stuck, Hermes enlisted Dionysus, the god of wine, to try a different tactic. With his easygoing nature, Dionysus greeted Hephaestus warmly and invited him for a drink, or several. One cup led to another, and before long, Hephaestus was thoroughly inebriated, barely able to speak straight. Hermes and Dionysus seized the opportunity, hoisting their intoxicated half-brother up to Olympus. Now, unable to refuse, Hephaestus freed Hera from her golden prison. Grateful and somewhat humbled, Hera accepted her son back into the fold, allowing him to stay on Olympus. From that point on, Hephaestus let go of his resentment and found his place among the gods, becoming the Olympians' master craftsman and an indispensable part of the divine assembly. Hephaestus, god of fire, embodied the element, not in the form of raging flames or lightning, but as the fire deep within the earth. In ancient Greek mythology, volcanic eruptions were attributed to Hephaestus's massive underground forges, where he tirelessly crafted weapons and tools. As the most productive of the Olympians, he was indispensable. Despite his unremarkable appearance and limp, Hephaestus was deeply respected by the gods. After a long day of labor, he would clean himself up and hobble over to join the Olympian feasts. Ever the social one, he didn't just sit back and relax. Instead, he'd hobble around, helping his sister Hebe by pouring wine and serving food to the gods, who couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of the sturdy blacksmith, shuffling about, determined to play the role of host. Hephaestus, despite his limp and rough appearance, had a rather stunning wife, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty herself. But the mismatch was plain as day, like a case of Wu Delong unwittingly marrying Pon Jinlian. Aphrodite's wandering eye was practically inevitable, and her choice of lover? None other than Hephaestus' own brother, Ares. Seething with jealousy and wounded pride, Hephaestus decided to catch the pair red-handed. With his expert craftsmanship, he forged an intricate, nearly invisible net and set it up around his marital bed. Sure enough, Ares, completely unaware of the trap, crept in to meet Aphrodite. As they were about to enjoy their rendezvous, the net snapped shut, binding the two lovers in place. Hephaestus called on the other gods to witness the scandal, putting his wife's infidelity and his brother's treachery on full display. The gods gathered, many barely holding back laughter, and justice was served. Ares was ordered to pay compensation. Poseidon, ever the supportive uncle, stepped forward as Ares' guarantor, promising to cover the penalty if Ares defaulted. Only then did Hephaestus lift the net, freeing Ares and Aphrodite. And while I won't spoil the aftermath, let's just say Poseidon didn't mind using this opportunity to get a little closer to Hephaestus' beautiful wife, leading to a few extra additions to the family tree. Olympus could easily be called a family business, with most of the 12 seats on the council occupied by Zeus's children or siblings. The only exception is Aphrodite, who is either Zeus's aunt or, in some versions, his daughter. Even Hermes and Dionysus, the lesser-known Olympians, are part of the Zeus lineage. Hermes, son of Zeus and the nymph Maia, was born in a cave on Mount Selene in Arcadia. Maia, by the way, is the daughter of Atlas, the Titan condemned to hold up the sky as punishment, courtesy of Zeus himself. Zeus truly didn't mind mixing family discipline with family romance. From the moment he was born, Hermes demonstrated his knack for acquiring things. Even as a newborn, he wandered off from his cradle and explored every corner of Greece, already exhibiting his talent as a master of thievery. One day, Hermes stumbled upon a herd of cattle belonging to Apollo, or more accurately, cattle Apollo was herding on behalf of King Admetus. Spotting his chance, Hermes decided to swipe them. Accounts vary, with some claiming Hermes took 12 cows, others say 100 calves and a bull, and some insist on a modest 15 cows. But no matter the count, Hermes led the cattle away with a clever trick. He tied branches to their tails to brush away any tracks, sweeping the ground as they walked. Just when Hermes thought he'd gotten away clean, he was spotted by an old man named Battus in Boeotia. Hermes tried to bribe the old man with one of the cows, asking him to keep quiet. But later, doubting Battus's discretion, Hermes returned in disguise, offering a grand reward if the man could reveal the cattle thief's location. Sure enough, Battus spilled the beans, and Hermes, furious, transformed him into a stone for tattling. Hermes eventually herded the cattle to Pylos, sacrificing 2 in honor of the Olympians, and then stashed the rest in a cave. To cover his tracks, he pulled each cow by the tail into the cave, leaving tracks that made it look as if they'd walked out rather than in. Satisfied with his work, Hermes returned to his cradle, feigning innocence. Apollo, discovering his cattle missing, searched high and low to no avail. A prophetic bird finally led him to Pylos, and while some versions claim Battus himself eventually helped point the way, Apollo found only signs suggesting the cows had left, not entered. Suspecting Hermes' hand in this mischief, Apollo confronted Maia. She, fiercely protective, rebuked him for accusing her baby, who, she insisted, knew nothing about theft. Meanwhile, Hermes lay quietly in his cradle, pretending to sleep. Frustrated, Apollo picked Hermes up from his cradle and took him straight to Zeus. Zeus, seeing through Hermes' facade, ordered him to return the cattle. Hermes led Apollo back to the cave, where the full extent of his mischief was revealed. Apollo, the god of light and truth, found himself bested by a newborn in trickery. In another twist to this story, it's said that during this escapade, Hermes invented the lyre by hollowing out a tortoise shell and stretching cow sinew across it. When he returned the cattle, he sat down with his new instrument, strumming it as he waited. Apollo, enchanted by the music, offered to trade the entire herd for the lyre. And thus, according to this tale, Apollo came into possession of his lyre, not at birth, but courtesy of the young Hermes and a stolen herd. Poor King Admetus, though. He lost his cattle in the deal without even knowing. Beyond his reputation as the god of thieves and tricksters, Hermes wore many hats. He was also the patron of herders and livestock, watching over shepherds and cattle alike. Some say Hermes was the first god to demand humans offer sacrifices with fire, a ritual that would shape the entire practice of worship. Upon joining Olympus, Hermes took on the role of divine messenger, becoming the protector of diplomats, couriers, and today's equivalents. Postal workers, delivery drivers, and yes, your local grab and shopee service. One of his more somber duties was guiding the souls of the dead to the underworld, leading them down to Hades' realm. Hermes wielded a magical staff with the power to put gods and mortals alike into a deep, almost death-like sleep. It could also rouse anyone, no matter how deeply they were slumbering. His role as the swift messenger of Olympus also required a special accessory, a pair of winged sandals. When he slipped them on, Hermes could fly across the heavens and earth at lightning speed, carrying news and messages with unparalleled agility. Dionysus, son of Zeus and a mortal woman named Semele, had quite the unconventional entry into the world. As we covered in the Zeus video, Hera, never one to miss a chance for sabotage, convinced Semele to demand that Zeus reveal his true divine form. The experience was more than Semele could handle, and she died in shock. Zeus, however, managed to rescue their unborn child, sewing him into his own thigh until it was time for his unconventional birth. Thus, Dionysus came into the world, born not from a womb but from Zeus's thigh. As the god of wine, Dionysus taught the Greeks the art of grape cultivation and winemaking. Unsurprisingly, he became beloved by the people, especially by those fond of a good drink. However, his life wasn't without its challenges. The wine he gifted to humanity was sometimes seen as a double-edged sword, a substance of enchantment and madness. One drink could turn anyone into a charismatic billionaire, at least until morning came with a dehydration headache and an empty wallet. Because of this, Dionysus' gift was occasionally misunderstood, even feared. Dionysus' mission to spread joy and revelry was carried out with the help of a large and lively entourage, including goddesses, priestesses, and most famously the satyrs and his mentor, Silenus. Satyrs, who were often called Sileni after their forefather Silenus, were half-man, half-goat creatures, known for their crude manners and passion for wine and women. They even wore comical wooden phalluses as part of their carefree attire. Silenus, the elder of the satyrs, had a few more equine features than his goat-like descendants. Sporting a scruffy beard, deep-set eyes, a bald pate, and a prominent beer belly, he was anything but refined. Yet Zeus had once entrusted Silenus with raising and educating young Dionysus, as Silenus was said to possess wisdom and the gift of prophecy. However, Silenus's teachings mostly revolved around the bottom of a wine cup, as he was rarely sober enough to offer coherent advice. His speech was often a tipsy ramble, making his prophecies hard to decipher, not because he was difficult, but simply because he was perpetually intoxicated. Wherever Dionysus' entourage went, it was a full-blown carnival of drums, dancing, and jubilant chaos. Freedom and indulgence were the core beliefs of Dionysus' followers, though these values didn't always earn him a reputation for benevolence. In fact, not everyone was thrilled by the arrival of the god of wine. One day, the raucous procession of Dionysus arrived in the land of Thrace, but King Lycurgus, rather than offering a warm welcome, outright rejected the son of Zeus. Lycurgus feared that Dionysus would corrupt his people, and so, determined to drive him out, he rallied his soldiers to attack the god's entourage. The satyrs and old Silenus scattered, each running in a different direction, while Dionysus himself had to flee for his life, eventually diving into the sea to escape capture. There, the sea goddess Thetis found him and offered him refuge in an underwater cave. After a few days of rest, Dionysus returned to Thrace with revenge in mind. He cast a spell over Lycurgus, driving him mad. The deranged king mistook his own son for a grapevine and hacked him down with an axe. To further punish Thrace, Dionysus made the land barren and the people desperate. As Thrace's crops withered, the people turned to the gods for guidance. The answer from Olympus was clear. Only the punishment of Lycurgus, who had dared to insult Dionysus, could lift the curse. So, the people seized their own king and executed him. With Lycurgus gone, Thrace's lands became fertile once again, and the people warmly welcomed Dionysus, eager to learn the arts of viticulture and winemaking. In truth, perhaps Lycurgus's fears weren't entirely unfounded. A god known for non-stop revelry could be quite the disruptive influence. But once you cross a god, there's no coming back, especially when it's one with a talent for curses and a flair for poetic justice. On another one of Dionysus's travels, this time to the land of Phrygia in the east, his entourage noticed that old Silenus was missing. A quick search revealed that Silenus, true to form, had wandered off, staggering in a drunken haze before eventually collapsing by the roadside. He himself was none the wiser, snoozing soundly until some local farmers happened upon him. Recognizing Silenus, they decided to wake him up and take him to King Midas. Midas considered it a great honor to host Dionysus's mentor, and he spared no effort to entertain Silenus, throwing a grand feast that lasted 9 full days and nights. On the 10th day, Midas personally escorted Silenus back to Dionysus's entourage. Impressed by Midas's generosity and hospitality, Dionysus granted the king a wish. Midas, with visions of untold riches, wished for the power to turn anything he touched into gold. Dionysus agreed, and off went the merry god with his followers, leaving Midas to revel in his newfound ability. On his way back to the palace, Midas eagerly tested his gift on everything within reach: rocks, trees, and even flowers, all of which turned to gleaming gold. The king was overjoyed, laughing like a madman at his seemingly limitless fortune. However, his euphoria was short-lived. When Midas finally sat down for a meal, he discovered the curse of his golden touch. Every bite of food and every sip of wine turned to solid gold the moment it touched his lips, leaving him unable to eat or drink. His joy quickly turned to desperation, and Midas, weakened by hunger, knelt down to pray to Dionysus for release from the curse. Dionysus reappeared and instructed Midas to wash himself in the river Pactolus. Midas did as told, and the golden touch washed away. From that day on, the sands of the Pactolus River shimmered with gold, a lasting reminder of Midas's ill-fated wish and Dionysus's mercy. After enduring countless trials and tribulations, Dionysus finally earned the respect and acceptance of Olympus. Even Hera set aside her grudge against this particular child of Zeus. The Council of Gods officially recognized Dionysus as one of the 12 Olympians. Some say Hestia graciously gave up her seat, preferring to live a quieter, more low-key life. Before ascending to Olympus to begin his new divine life, Dionysus made a final journey to the underworld to retrieve his mother, Semele. Having gained a place among the gods, he couldn't bear the thought of leaving his mother to remain a mere shade under Hades' rule. The gods of Olympus supported his quest, and so Dionysus brought Semele up to Olympus, where she was granted immortality and took on the new name, Thyone. There's another story worth mentioning here, one of love and a twist of fate. On the island of Naxos, Dionysus encountered Princess Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos of Crete, and made her his wife. Why a Cretan princess ended up on Naxos? That's a tale involving the Minotaur and the hero Theseus, one we'll save for a future video. And so, we wrap up both this story and the chronicles of the gods of Olympus. In the next videos, we'll turn our focus to humankind and the heroes who dared to walk among the gods.